It is Friday, August 28th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another non-virtual get your ass kicked by Jiu-Jitsu Friday. Did not get my ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu, just by it today. Oh man, I swear, over the last couple of days, and I want to say about the last week now, it seems like I feel like I'm mildly concussed. And it could have happened at any time, but I think specifically, I know exactly when it did happen, is I was doing a forward roll while we were doing warm-ups, and I completely face-planted. And I've had a pre-existing back injury for a while, and I usually notice it if I haven't been doing a lot of pec stuff. You know, if my pecs have gotten a little bit weak, my upper back gets really tense and pulls my shoulder blades together and kind of humps me over a little bit, and I get into this lethargy and start getting a little bit of dizzy spells and stuff. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's a pre-existing injury. It's been jarred up a few times, but every once in a while I get it all loosened up again, and I'm sure that that's one of those things that when I was doing rolling at night that I was able to work out a bit, and it, you know, because I haven't been doing that, it's tightening up on me. I'm gonna have to get back out and roll the mat out and do some back work. Because, you know, that's something you do have to do, you know, every once in a while. Just no pressure on you, no real time. Just put on some fucking headphones and do stuff to warm up your back, you know. And like I said, I've had the whole gamut, except for I haven't had any tinglies in my fingers. But, you know, pretty much other than that, I've had like the whole gamut of associated things with the concussion. You know, a little bit of ringing in the ears, a little bit of cold sweats when it happened. Yeah, all of those things, you know, they're all tied to being concussed or getting a concussion, and I've had a few. So it's like it's not an alien concept or sensation for me. But I don't think it's anything that requires surgery. Really, the times when I've been able to get it to where it didn't bother me at all is when I've been in the best shape. You know, it's like I had a bout with it when I was running, and at first I'd stopped running because I was in so much pain when I was running. I was feeling it while I was running, and so I'd kind of let it get in my way. And after a while, it pissed me off so bad that I started running anyway. And after a while, I got to where it didn't hurt anymore, you know. And it wasn't so much that I just blocked out the pain or whatever, as much as it relaxed the back enough, or, you know, the stretching and other stuff that I was doing on my back was loosening it up enough that when I ran, it didn't hurt anymore. You know, and plus I'm sure the extra weight I was carrying around my waist wasn't doing me any favors. But anyway, so yeah, I've been a little bit out of it, and today was like the first time back that I wasn't really feeling it as much. I popped my back, you know, I got my back to pop, and after that happened, I quit having the dizzy spells and shit like that, so I'm pretty sure it's my back. I mean, at first I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I knew I had hurt myself by rolling forward because I felt it in my clavicle, and I could feel it in the back of my neck too. So I knew I injured something, but not exactly what and not exactly to what extent. So I'm sure it'll be a couple weeks before I'm 100%, but I am feeling like I'm catching up to it. You know, it's and I think that's something that has been a lot easier since I've been doing classes regularly, because I do cardio right before class. Before I even go in to do the warm-up with class, I do my own warm-up. And I think that helps quite a bit in managing my weight, because I'm I'm one of those guys that I love my chocolate. Love chocolate. And I know that it doesn't, well, I don't know, maybe it loves me a little too much, sticks to me. But I noticed it, recently, where I had a habit of eating a specific chocolate, and then I quit doing that, and I swear I'm like losing an extra pound every week because I'm not doing that. So I'm going to continue not doing that. It's producing positive results, so I'm going to stick with it. But yeah, as far as what we covered in class today, a little bit of reverse De La Riva stuff, and then we did a reverse De La Riva to a what was that take? It was to get somebody in double trouble. To X guard. It was reverse De La Riva to X guard, or like a reverse X guard. And I always have trouble because you got to invert on that one. You got to invert, bring your hips up over your shoulders, and hook it on the other side. And I don't know, I always have trouble with those positions. When I'm having to reach it through and roll over my shoulders, and especially now with the injury being right between my shoulder blades, I'm having to roll on it just to get to the other side there, and that area is still really, really tight. So it was not easy, and plus the guy I was working with was kind of large. He was a little bit larger than I was, so it made it a little more challenging, because you actually have to, while you're down in between their legs, you got to extend your legs and get their weight onto your legs. You extend your legs with them crossed and against their hamstring, and lifting them to the point to where their toes can't touch the ground on the one side, and then bringing that foot in to where you can grab the knee, and it gets you in a position basically to where you got an ankle on one side and an ankle on the other that you can threaten. And I guess they call that double trouble. I was first introduced to that particular name today and that particular move today, so it was something new, and my body certainly did not have a memory for it yet. Something that, but the material we were going through is a bit advanced, so I don't feel terrible that I wasn't pulling it off right away. But yeah, reverse De La Riva stuff, man. By the time I've got that move down, I'm going to be like an expert at reverse De La Riva, X guard. And it's funny because, like I said, that really hasn't been a whole lot of my game. I'll be honest with you. I'm usually moving so intuitively and not really a whole lot of thought involved, and I noticed this because it's the second time, or I shouldn't say second, third time that I've gone through this, where I've had a significant period of training off, and I've come back from it. And I always get down on myself for not being able to just immediately go to it and train for do a full hour of rolling afterward, and all that other shit. And I've come to the conclusion that this is just part of my natural progression. That first I'll come back, next I'll come back and I'll do one round as far as I can. And during that one round, if I get too out of breath, I'll cardio tap, which I did last time. And then, I'll do that until I'm fully comfortable with getting over it. Because a lot of it, I face a lot of anxiety, a lot of personal anxiety. It's one of the reasons why I even do jiu-jitsu, is because it forces me to push past that initial no You know what I mean? Like, there's like somebody in my head. It's like, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Oh, you should think about that. And like jiu-jitsu, it makes me like stand up to that guy and say, no, you know what? I think I can fucking do it. You can just fucking take a seat. I got it handled. And you know, that's, again, it's a progression. You know, it's not something where I'm going to be able to, you know, come off all stoic and relaxed when somebody's got their arm around my neck or something like that. Although, I will say this, that as panicked as I was in the last round of rolling that I did, I still managed to maintain my composure enough that when he had his arm, he was trying to work for a rear naked choke, and he had his arm against my chin, and he didn't pull on that hard enough to crush on my chin, and he could have. You know, that's a legal move in competition jiu-jitsu, and you know, he was being easy on it. I mean, if he really wanted that back take, as far as he got into it, if he was in a position where it was legit to, you know, clamp down on that jawbone, you know, and make a pain tap happen, it would have been fully legit. But nonetheless, I was keeping myself in a position where he couldn't really close out that grip under my chin. You know, I kept putting my face down toward his bicep, and it was keeping him from being able to pull it all the way around. Now, what he should have done, if he was really that interested in getting it, was pull his arm back and put his knuckles on the side of my face until I turned my head. And then he would have been able to sneak that arm around and close it out. But then I would have brought at least one hand up to address it. Anyway, as it was, I didn't have any hands on him. I was just holding my chin down while I was dealing with his legs. And it's funny, is he managed to get both of his hooks in, and as soon as he did, I reached down and I grabbed one of his feet, and then I leaned back and pulled it to my chest. And I was able to then hold that foot up and then push down on his calf and sneak my ass over his leg and sneak out of the back take. But then he worked me right into a arm take maneuver, and I had to exert a little more effort, but I managed to get out of that too. that one took a lot more effort, but nonetheless, he never got my arm to a position where it was really a threat. Like he didn't get it far enough back to where I was struggling to get it back. I always had really good control of the arm, and I didn't have it in a position where he could go for the bicep slice, because that would have been bad too. But I kept rolling him over. You know, I rolled him over like 2 or 3 times trying to get out of the armbar, and I think the last time I stapled one of his legs down with my leg and then kind of thrust up with my shoulder against his other leg, and that got me out of the armbar. But then I cardio tapped right after that, because man, that tussle really took it out of me. Good times. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And you know we're going to go with body count, because that's just the way that we start the show. I mean, it's like tradition and shit. But like, what song? And you know, I haven't played this one in a while, and let me see if I can get to it. Body count, body count, body count. But here it is. The Ski Mask Way, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was long enough. That was Metallica with Creeping Death live. Anyways, as far as what we're going to get into today, I got to be honest. I've been like buried in this whole Kyle thing, man. It's a fucked situation all the way around, honestly. But from what I've read, and I've read quite a bit about it, the kid has been kind of painted like a shitball or something by the media, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, and you know, we're all free to feel the way we do. It's when it starts interceding with other people that start running into issues. Anywho, as far as what we're going to get into today, I got all kinds of stuff. Got all kinds of tabs open in the browser, so you know I got it covered. And I thought this was pretty hilarious, honestly. And I don't know how it's going to relate to the rest of what we cover tonight, but yeah, I ever since the first suggestions of lightning started coming around, I knew that there would be some sort of progression toward it. And I believe that in the long run, what's going to end up happening is that because all of these projects that they're doing these second layers on are open source, that somebody will figure out how to extract the monetary value out of these contracts and or payment channels, and it will end up in that service becoming one that you need an official license for. And of course, Visa and MasterCard are already lined up. They've already got several methods that they could be using crypto, and they're already licensed. And fucking Satoshi Nakamoto predicted this so fucking long ago that if you did it any way other than peer-to-peer, and you did it in any other way other than as received, you would run into these issues. That the process of conducting Bitcoin transactions would be handed off to licensed third parties, and you would be regulated the fuck out of that. And that also that things like RBF would basically make it to where you could not transact on the Bitcoin blockchain because people will bid you the fuck out of every block. And this is predictable. Completely predictable. And it's going to end up breaking Bitcoin, I think. That what will end up happening is that they will do this. The majority of transactions will go to a layer 2. And then an adversarial actor will come around and fucking drain one of those payment channels of billions of fucking dollars, and the hammer will fall down, and the regulators will all throw up their hands and say, you can't be a fucking payment channel, you can't be a payment processor, you need a license for that shit. That's why Bitcoin worked without any of that crap from the beginning. And the coins that retain that capability of you being able to transact directly on their blockchain from peer to peer in an as received manner, those are the coins that are going to survive this. And it'll only be because they retain the same capability that Bitcoin originally started with. And that's that anybody could participate, anybody who was so motivated could be a miner and be a part of the network. The coins that retain that capability will make it through this. But I personally, I believe it's part of a cycle that will hit this point where there'll be the Bitcoin blockchain itself will be the chain that all the bankers glom onto and dominate, and that the vast majority of people that are even interested in using Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general will not use Bitcoin, because all of your transactions will be monitored, all of your transactions will be taxed, so on and so forth. You will not be able to buy drugs with your Bitcoin. Or if you are, it's because you're ultra mega rich and you can afford to actually participate directly on the blockchain. But of course by then I think they'll have it to where you literally cannot interact with the Bitcoin blockchain unless you're maybe a miner or a node. I don't believe they'll ever license out mining. And the reason being is that these networks are ad hoc. I mean, they're by design. They're meant to expand or contract as their user base expands and contracts. And I don't believe that any licensure or any regulatory step up or whatever is going to be terribly effective. That in the end, what will end up happening is that the currencies that they can apply those regulations to effectively will die. Because the people that are currently mining them, they can't afford that shit. They can't afford to be paying, $25,000 of operating capital off to some fucking regulatory entity in a country they probably don't even fucking live in. It's too onerous to expect that. And more importantly, you can't expect universal application of the law. Meaning that you'll have miners pop up somewhere, and even though it's illegal, by the time you get around to actually enforcing your shit on them, sending cops over to bust them, they could be pulling up shop and moving somewhere else. Or they could just shut down and go somewhere else. But the network itself doesn't go away. It might lose a little hashing power for just a moment, but there's plenty of miners out there that are looking for the best value for their hashes. And they will move to another coin that if they can. Meaning if their hardware will support it. And I think if you get enough disaffected miners out there, they'll fucking create their own coin. They'll all get together and they'll fork off an existing project, and that'll be that. They'll be their own network. They'll get their own social networks going, and they'll use their coin within their social network as a currency. And that's really all it has to do. It just has to be able to send money from one person to another without the need for a third party, and it will be successful. Because that's the friction demand of the original Bitcoin transaction, was one person to another. Anyway, so I got this thing here, and this is really kind of hilarious to me. Anyway, this is on btcmanager.com. And it seems like there's this bigger push now to become a competitor with like Lightning or what's that other one, Liquid or something like that. And so like Omisco is basically the same thing on Ethereum. And so but the funny part about this is that they're not the only ones that can do it. They're not the only ones that can hire devs or even get volunteer devs to write software for them, or just copy other people's code. And I expect that that's going to continue. Anyway, I got this thing here. USDC 2.0 introduces quote-unquote gasless sends to tackle skyrocketing Ethereum fees. And this is by Aish Warya Tiwari, and I'm thinking it might be no penis. Freelance writers, blah, 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 blah. No. So yes, penis. Sorry. Circumventing Ethereum gas woes. US-based cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase and peer-to-peer payments technology firm Circle have launched a new USDC stablecoin with several upgrades to the underlying protocol and smart contract. The upgrades are aimed toward making it easier for businesses and individuals to use the USD-pegged cryptocurrency for routine transactions. Specifically, the new USDC stablecoin will address the major, quote, gas fees pain point that discourages small traders from transacting cryptocurrencies on account of ridiculous fees associated with transactions. For the uninitiated, stablecoins such as Tether, USDT, and USDC are ERC20 tokens that run on the Ethereum network. Whenever a trader or investor transfers the aforementioned stablecoins from their wallet, they are required to hold a certain amount of Ethereum in their wallet to pay for the gas. This condition presents a barrier to mainstream adoption and broad usage of USD-pegged stablecoins for virtual payments. To tackle this problem, USDC has introduced, quote, gasless sends that allows wallet developers to do away with the need for the customer to hold a balance in Ether and rather delegate the payment of the gas fees to another address, i.e. a third party. The mechanism essentially allows developers to either provide the service themselves or allow a third-party service to pay the related funds. Put simply, developers can either pay the fees on the customer's behalf or present and deduct the fees in USDC. Bolstered security and smart contract protection. In addition to addressing the Ethereum gas fee menace, USDC 2.0 also introduces a new set of on-chain multi-signature contracts and new consensus algorithms geared towards strengthening the security of the protocol. The announcement reads in part, quote, administrative operations can be managed on-chain versus manual off-chain processes, which improves security, auditability, and in turn resilience. By using an M of N multiple signature model, these improvements also anticipate growth in Center with more members, including issuing members who would participate in operational flows using on-chain tasks. In related news, BTC Manager reported that the largest stablecoin by market cap, USDT, had gone live on trustless non-custodial Layer 2 Ethereum scaling solution, OMG Network, for faster transactions and scalability. So yeah, basically these guys have designed their own smart contract, I think. And let me see if I can find a link to this thing. I'm trying to look through the article itself and see if it's got a... Oh, no. Fees. Fees. Let's see here. USDC, maybe that. Or maybe it's an unveiled. No, USDC news. Let's try unveiled. Yeah, here we go. And I guess this is by the Center Consortium, CENTRE in all caps. But yeah, I guess this is their presentation for USDC 2.0. Center Consortium announces release of USD Coin version 2.0. And this is by the Center Consortium, August 27th. And so yeah, let's get into this thing. Center Consortium members Circle and Coinbase today announced a major upgrade to the USD Coin, USDC, protocol and smart contract, making it significantly easier for people to use USDC in payments, commerce, and peer-to-peer transactions. The update also adds additional security infrastructure to the USDC smart contract. These advancements come at a time when USDC, the fastest growing regulated stablecoin, has seen unprecedented adoption, surpassing $1.4 billion in market capitalization and more than $90 billion in on-chain transaction volume. Gasless sends improve user experience. USDC transactions on the Ethereum network incur transaction costs called gas fees. Most digital wallets require users to purchase and hold a balance of Ether in order to pay these gas fees. This complexity presents a barrier to mainstream adoption and broad usage of digital dollar stablecoins for internet payments. Yeah, it's because they're shit. They maintain a peg to the fucking dollar versus altcoins. And it's stupid because altcoins actually go up in value versus the US dollar, unlike stablecoins. USDC 2.0 introduces, quote, gasless sends, which enables wallet and app developers to abstract away the complexity of gas fees, i.e. give them to somebody else to pay or not pay, and the need for the customer to hold a balance of Ether, and instead to delegate the payment of gas fees to another address. This allows developers to either provide the services themselves or allows a third-party service to pay the related fees. In other words, developers can either pay the fees on behalf of the customer or present and deduct the fees in USDC. With this innovation, digital wallet and app developers can build user experiences that more closely resemble the experience of existing mobile payment apps. Customers will be able to send and receive USDC payments in a peer-to-peer basis solely using USDC, with fees expressed and paid in USDC. These simplified and improved user experience flows will accelerate the virality of making and receiving payments using USDC on the internet. Improved security and administration. USDC and Center operate with the core set of administrative tasks and functions that require the involvement of key technical security and operational teams at issuers, and many of these tasks are handled through offline manual processes. USDC 2.0 introduces a new set of on-chain multiple signature contracts, including new consensus mechanisms, which will help to improve the resiliency and growth of Center and shift offline human processes into on-chain multi-signature processes. Administrative operations can be managed on-chain versus manual off-chain processes, which improves security, auditability, and in turn resilience. Whatever. By using an M of N multi-signature model, these improvements also anticipate the growth in Center with more members, including issuing members who would participate in operational flows using on-chain tasks. USDC 2.0 availability and support. The new USDC smart contract and protocol improvements are available today, August 27th, and any wallet developer can begin to take advantage of gasless sends. Center members Circle and Coinbase both intend to introduce support for these protocol improvements in their respective products and services, and any third-party developer can integrate and support this today using public USDC smart contract. The USDC 2.0 changes enabled today are completely backward compatible, and there is no impact or change to wallets, exchange, or applications currently integrating with USDC, nor is there any impact or change to existing holders of USDC. To learn and hear more about these developments, tune into the Money Movement Live today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where product leadership from Circle and Coinbase, including VP of Product at Circle, João Reginado, and Group Product Manager at Coinbase, Nimil Dalal, will join Circle CEO Jeremy Allaire to discuss USDC at 1 billion, USDC 2.0, and the future of stablecoins. And I guess there is a response on this. I'm eager to hear what that is. Here we go. Sinisa Simon Radovic said, "Time to add this payment method to my commercial site and save money on them Visa MC fees." Yeah, whatever. So, it seems to me that they're probably going to hand it off to an existing payment services provider. Maybe MasterCard even. But there's something that this and all of the off-chain scaling solutions, quote unquote, there's one thing that this one and all of them miss continually. It's that no matter who you pass it off to, and no matter when they actually pay the transaction fee for the transaction to go through and to finally settle, regardless of when that happens, if the volume of transactions gets high enough, the fees will become too high for you to cost average out or average over time or There's only so much block space, and as long as that is true, there's only going to be so many transactions per time interval happening on that chain. And that limitation is a wall that they will continually bump up against. It doesn't matter if they're using Omisco. It doesn't matter if they're using Lightning. It doesn't matter if they're using Liquid. If they are transacting Bitcoin or they are transacting Ethereum, if they are moving it anywhere on a blockchain, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or fucking Monero or Verge or Litecoin or any other cryptocurrency, that barrier still exists. The time interval for the block still exists. And the volume limitations of that block will dictate how much your fees are and nothing else. Well, and also the demand for that block space. The demand goes up, the fees go up. And so now we're talking about things like BSV. If you were utilizing BSV as your end blockchain, you would get over this issue because they effectively don't really have a limit on their block size. And if your sole purpose in life is being a payment services provider, that's your blockchain. Because the blocks can be as big as you need them to be. It's stylized to work using maybe 5, maybe 6 major mining centers being the backbone for its network. It's designed for you. It's meant for you. And I believe that's what they're going to find out. You know, that as long as they're on cryptocurrency networks that have relatively limited capacity as far as block space, they're going to run into this. I mean, I think maybe Bitcoin Cash might be best tooled for them beyond BSV, but I think even in the long run, they're going to have to abandon block size limits entirely, and it's just going to be, they're going to go back to an as received instead of this fucking RBG or fucking replaced by fee or whatever. They're going to give up RBF. They're going to give up block size limits because in the long run, they contain the number of people that will mine and limit the capabilities of the network itself because of that. And I think even Bitcoin is somewhat hobbled by that. That if they remove the block size limit and they removed RBF, and I'd be happy if they removed SegWit too. But the most of the transactions would be going back to Bitcoin because the fees would go back under a penny and everybody would be happy to use it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And got some KMF. Oh no, Rammstein playing in the background, and it's tempting. You know what? I haven't played Rammstein in like a long time. There's this one song, and everybody knows it, and I think it's about time we played it. And so here it is, Du Hast, here on Coin Metal. And that was Down with Losing All. And so, I did a little bit of digging around, because I'm always on about adversarial actors on the second layer and all that other bullshit. And so, I thought, you know, maybe there is just nothing to worry about. You know, maybe I am being a panicky little bitch about it. You know, maybe it's my perspective that's off. And so, you know, I did a little bit of digging around, and it turns out that there is a little bit of a threat. That there are threats out there. And so, yeah, as far as which one to cover, though, I've actually got two here. One is SOK, transparent dishonesty, front-running attacks on blockchain. This is one we were talking about this. RBF allows them to bump your transaction out of the block. Yeah. And then the other one I got here is Squirrel, automating attack analysis on blockchain incentive mechanisms with deep reinforcement learning. Both of these are 20-page PDFs. We may or may not get through all of them, regardless of which one we go with. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to scroll through really quick and see which ones are maths heavy or image heavy, and we'll go with the one that has the most graphs and stuff on it. Well, it looks like the first one here, Squirrel, we might actually be able to do both of them, because the citations for Squirrel start at page 14 of 20, so it's only about 6 pages, and the rest of it is fucking citations. So we'll try and do both. You never know. It could be the same thing. Let's look at the other PDF really quick and see how much of it is image and citations and all that bogus stuff. A lot of images, good stuff. Looks like there's a lot of annotations here. It's good news. Let's get... Okay, so we got our confidentiality. Thought that might have been conclusions, but there we go. Concluding remarks is on page 17 of 20. So we might not actually get to both of them or complete both of them, but I mean we'll at least be able to get through the abstracts of both of them, and having gotten through all the way through the first one. So let's just do it. Alright, so this is Squirrel, and I'll just say it up front, I'm not going to go through the fucking citations. The majority of this document, 14 pages of it, is citations and references. So we're not going to go through all of them. I'm not going to indicate where they are. If you want them, you can read this, and it's on, let's see, arxiv.org, PDF, 1912.01798.pdf. Anyway, so here it is. Squirrel, automating attack analysis on blockchain incentive mechanisms with deep reinforcement learning. And this is by Charlie Hao, Mingzheng Zhao, Yanji, Phil Dan, and that's actually a familiar one. Florian Tramer, Juliana Gulia. My apologies. Julia, Fenty, Ari Jules. And I'm not going to announce who they're from. Anyway, abstract. And apparently this is authored August 4th, 2020. Abstract. Incentive mechanisms are central to the functionality of permissionless blockchains. They incentivize participants to run and secure the underlying consensus protocol. Designing incentive-capable incentive mechanisms is notoriously challenging. However, as a result, the most public blockchains today use incentive mechanisms whose security properties are poorly understood and largely untested. In this work, we propose Squirrel, RL, a framework for using deep reinforcement learning for analyzing attacks on blockchain incentive mechanisms. We demonstrate Squirrel's power by first recovering known attacks. Number 1, the optimal selfish mining attack in Bitcoin and Nash equilibrium in block withholding attacks. We also use Squirrel to obtain several novel empirical results. First, we discover a counterintuitive flaw in the widely used rushing adversary model when applied to multi-agent Markov games with incomplete information. Identified in 52 is not actually a Nash equilibrium in the multi-agent selfish mining setting. In fact, our results suggest, but do not prove, that when more than two competing agents engage in selfish mining, there is no profitable Nash equilibrium. This is consistent with the lack of observed selfish mining in the wild. Third, we find a novel attack on a simplified version of Ethereum's finalization mechanism. Casper, the friendly finality gadget that allows a strategic agent to amplify her rewards by up to 30%, notably shows that honest voting is a Nash equilibrium in Casper FFG. Our attack shows that when Casper FFG is composed with selfish mining, this is no longer the case. Altogether, our experiments demonstrate Squirrel's flexibility and promise as a framework for studying attack settings that have thus far eluded theoretical and empirical understanding. Number 1. Introduction. Blockchains today require participants to expend substantial resources: storage, computation, electricity. Oh, they forgot bandwidth. To ensure the correctness and liveness of the user's transactions, of other users' transactions. Most public blockchains therefore rely critically on incentive mechanisms to motivate users to participate in blockchain consensus protocols. That is, users are typically paid in native cryptocurrency to sustain the system. Incentive mechanisms are therefore central to the functionality of most permissionless blockchains. For example, Bitcoin's consensus protocol requires participants, also known as miners, to build a sequential data structure of blocks, where each block is generated in a computationally intensive process called mining. To incentivize participation, Bitcoin miners receive a block reward in Bitcoin for every block that they mine that is accepted by the rest of the network. Miners also receive smaller transaction fees for transactions they include in a block. This is done to prevent miners from simply mining empty blocks without doing useful work. The incentive mechanisms of block rewards and fees have driven the remarkable growth of the Bitcoin ecosystem. In practice, poorly designed incentive mechanisms can be exploited by rational users. By deviating from the protocol's specified behavior, users may be able to accumulate more rewards than what they are nominally entitled to. For example, selfish mining is a well-known attack on Bitcoin's incentive mechanism that allows a strategic miner to reap more than their fair share of block rewards by waiting to publish their blocks until they would cause the most damage to the honest majority. Many subsequent papers have explored both attacks on Bitcoin's incentive mechanism as well as other cryptocurrencies. Today, attacks on blockchain incentive mechanisms are typically studied through a lengthy process of modeling and theoretical systems. As many cryptocurrencies lack the resources for theoretical analysis, the vast majority of blockchain incentive mechanisms have not been studied at all. Substantial amounts of cryptocurrency may thus be vulnerable to unknown attacks. A proposed framework, Squirrel. In this work, we propose Squirrel, a generalizable framework for using deep reinforcement learning, DRL, to analyze blockchain incentive mechanisms. Squirrel is intended as a general-purpose methodology for blockchain developers to test incentive mechanisms for vulnerabilities. It does not provide theoretical guarantees. Just because it does not find any profitable attacks does not mean that honest behavior is a dominant strategy. We find in practice, however, that instantiations of Squirrel are effective at identifying adversarial strategies, which can be used to prove that an incentive mechanism is insecure. Our primary contributions are threefold. Number 1, Framework. We present Squirrel as a general framework for exploring vulnerabilities in blockchain incentive mechanisms and recovering adversarial strategies. The framework broadly involves, number one, the creation of a simulation environment with accompanying feature and action spaces reflecting the views and capabilities of participating agents. Number two, selection of an adversarial model, including numbers and types of agents. And number three, selection of a suitable RL algorithm and associated reward function. As part of this framework, we develop a general state space representation for a broad class of blockchain incentive mechanisms, which allows us to trade off feature dimensionality with accuracy. We show how to use this framework flexibility to handle settings involving varying environments, numbers of agents, and rewards. Number two, selfish mining evaluation. We apply Squirrel RL to various blockchain consensus/incentive protocols to analyze variants of selfish mining. Using Squirrel RL, we are able to recover known theoretical results in the Bitcoin protocol while also extending state-of-the-art results to domains that were previously intractable, ergo, the multi-agent setting, larger state spaces, other protocols. Our experiments suggest two new findings. Number one, theoretically analyzing repeated interactions between multiple strategic agents is difficult due to the large state and action space. Prior work in this setting has therefore simplified the strategy space, under which a selfish mining strategy is known to be a Nash equilibrium. However, our experiments suggest that under a more general strategy space, semi-selfish mining is not a Nash equilibrium. In fact, for the Bitcoin protocol, all variants of selfish mining appear to be unprofitable in settings with at least 3 strategic agents. This is consistent with the lack of observed selfish mining in the wild, although it is unclear whether this observation or other externalities are to blame. We find that the classical notion of a rushing adversary, which is widely used in the cryptographic literature to model a worst-case adversary, can give counterintuitive and non-physical results in multi-strategic agent settings. This has implications beyond the blockchain domain regarding how security researchers should model multi-agent settings. We expect this observation may be particularly relevant as DRL gains adoption as a tool for learning to attack and or defend complex systems that are not amenable to theoretical analysis. Number 3. Demonstration of extensibility. We show that Squirrel is generally applicable to attacks on other types of incentive mechanisms beyond selfish mining. We apply Squirrel to the proposed Ethereum finalization mechanism, Casper the Friendly Finality Agent. These results illustrate that a strategic miner can collude with a Casper FFG validator to amplify its rewards by up to 30% more than a strategic miner or validator could do alone. Such strategic collusion can cause honest validators to leave, progressively corrupting the system. This raises important questions about the composability of incentive mechanisms. We apply Squirrel to block withholding attacks where it converges to two-player strategies that match the Nash equilibrium. In number 16. Let's see, A paper outline. We motivate the need for Squirrel in 2, or SS2? I don't know how that works. Explaining why existing technologies fall short, and then provide background on deep reinforcement learning in 3. And I'm supposing that's like subsection. And in the present design of Squirrel in 4, we evaluate Squirrel on a variety of settings. The single strategic agent selfish mining setting in 5, the multi-strategic agent selfish mining setting in number 6, and Casper FFG and the miner's dilemma in 7, or subsection 7. We discuss related work in subsection 8 and conclude with a brief summary in subsection 9. Motivation. Today, the processes for analyzing new attacks on blockchain incentive mechanisms is manual and time-consuming. Typically, studying such attacks requires some combination of theoretical analysis, simulation, and intuition. Each becomes more difficult to obtain as the complexity of the underlying protocol grows. In particular, game theoretical analysis of these systems tends to be challenging for 3 reasons. Number 1, the state space is large or continuous. Number 2, the game is repeated. And number 3, there can be many agents. Indeed, much of the existing analysis has focused on settings where only 1 or 2 agents are allowed to deviate from the honest mining strategy. At the same time, new protocols are emerging frequently, each with its own incentive mechanisms. Oftentimes, protocol designers rely on intuition to reason about the security of their incentive mechanisms, in part because we lack general-purpose tools for mechanism analysis. Even when protocol designers provide security proofs, they typically at most show that honest behavior is a Nash equilibrium if honest parties are a significant portion of the participants in the protocol. This weak guarantee says nothing about other equilibria or the perhaps more realistic setting in which many competing parties behave rationally. Our central premise is that a systemic and largely automated approach for testing incentive mechanisms would streamline this process and could help catch incentive mechanism bugs before deployment in the wild. A. Use case. We envision protocol designers using our framework to study a natural progression of adversarial models and experiments to help address key security and incentive alignment questions for an incentive mechanism M. These are shown in Table 1. For a given adversarial resource, ergo mining power, a single strategic agent S competing against a group of honest agents represents the most powerful possible adversary. Such an agent can simulate any set of strategies among multiple agents, as can steal rewards from honest agent H, whose strategy is a fixed a priori and thus cannot develop a counter strategy. Learning S thus yields insights into the worst case performance of M. Addition of a second strategic agent then addresses the question of whether S itself is dominant or suboptimal in the presence of a competing agent. This setting captures the dynamics when a single strategic agent is first challenged by others. By training 2 competing agents in tandem, it is also possible to explore the questions such as how stable are learned strategies over time. An actual deployment of a mechanism M, of course, a community of K greater to or equal than 3 competing strategic agents can arise. A case more plausible than sustained attack by a single strategic agent. The Squirrel framework dictates analysis with various values of K to explore the likely practical security of M, and it gives us a little diagram here. Or a single strategic agent, agent type, system is S, what impact of worst attack, and that's explored questions, what optimal adversarial strategy. Interesting. The Table 1 experimental progression in an automated incentive mechanism analysis system. The sequence of experiments with increasing numbers of strategic agents sheds light on key security questions for Mechanism M. Yeah, at some point or another, I think that these adversarial positions are going to be seeing competition for like a designated actor, and these people will probably be for hire. Malicious miners or something like that. Anyway, continuing on. And by the way, this I believe that these bullshit attacks are because it is profitable enough to do. See, the way to make it not profitable is for more people to be mining. Not necessarily profitably individually, potentially in mining pools, more mining pools. But the point being that there needs to be more competition in mining. And if these monkeys that are fucking around with being adversarial actors had enough incentive, that's what they would be doing. Continuing on. The squirrel framework dictates analysis with various values of K to explore the likely practical security of M. For example, a mechanism may have poor worst-case security, yet have its participants converge to the strategy of H for all players given competition among strategic agents. A key question is, how much reward, as a function of K, can strategic agents collectively steal from H? We emphasize that the experiments in Table 1 are a starting point, not a full prescription. However, they shed light on a number of central incentive-related questions that are non-trivial to evaluate today. B. Strawman solution. A natural first step for analyzing consensus protocols is modeling them as Markov decision processes, MDPs, and using classical algorithms such as policy iteration or value iteration to solve them. MDPs are commonly used to model problems where an agent wishes to maximize its reward in a known random environment. Value iteration and policy iteration have been used effectively to computationally learn optimal adversarial strategies in the two-agent, one strategic, one honest settings of the Bitcoin protocol. MDPs are defined as a tuple, SAPR, where S denotes a set of states, A denotes a set of actions the agent can take, P denotes the probability transition matrix, where P to the square root of S and a bunch of fucking math denotes the probability of the agent transitioning to state S to the power of 1, or I don't know. Denotes the expected blah blah blah, bunch of math. We highlight one aspect of this definition. It relies critically on a Markov assumption, which states that the probability distribution over states depends only on the previous state and the action taken at each time step. Conditioned on these assumptions, the objective in an MDP is to recover a strategy pi that optimizes the expected discounted long-term reward, and a whole bunch of math is a discount factor that accounts how much the agent values short-term rewards over the long-term ones, and the expectation is taken over the randomness in the system of evolution and the potentially randomized strategy pi. You know what? I'm looking at all this math and stuff, and I'm sure there's a lot of meaning in it and all that. But there's one kind of incentive that I can think of that is slightly different than what they're considering here. They're looking, I think anyway, on a superficial level here at specifically the incentive in terms of reward of Bitcoin or Ethereum, depending on which network it's happening on. And in terms of Ethereum, the advent of things like ICOs and DeFi tokens and all that, the advent of those is introducing a new incentive. Just the acquisition of the Ethereum for gas to execute these things is enough, I think, to open up a whole new realm of incentive to just try and gank the Ethereum. Anyway, continuing on. With known and exactly specified SAPR, value iteration or policy iteration can exactly solve up to desired precision for the optimal pi. Pi. In policy iteration was used to, I think that's pi anyway, find an optimal selfish mining strategy for a rational Bitcoin agent. However, policy and value iteration exhibit two primary constraints that prevent them from being a useful general purpose tool for our problem. They assume a stationary environment. To formulate an MDP, there must exist a fixed probability transition matrix P. This is true in the single strategic agent setting, where one agent is honest and thus behaves according to a known strategy. However, in practical settings, we have multiple rational agents who are dynamically changing their strategies, leading to a non-stationary environment. This is no longer an MDP, but a Markov game, where policy iteration and value iteration do not apply. Number 2, they scale poorly with growing state processes. Policy and value iteration store the probability transition matrix P and reward matrix R explicitly, which requires storage, OSA, and probability value must be stored for each transition, SAS, where S is the current state, A is the action taken, and S is the new state, i.e., and on that note, they're probably talking about right there is with things like Lightning Network, where the state of the state of the funds changes in transition. Anyway, continuing on. This can be prohibitive for protocols where the state cannot be represented by a compact feature. Ergo, when the reward is not computed from a single chain in the ledger's directed acyclical graph, DAG. Even in Bitcoin, the state space can be intractably large. For example, if there are two strategic selfish mining agents, A and B, Agent A cannot observe the hidden blocks of Agent B. Agent A needs to at least have an unbiased estimate of B's hidden blocks to write out an MDP. The only way for Agent A to estimate Agent B's hidden blocks is to use the history of its observations as well as some notion of time. Suppose that we wanted to consider a past history of what? That symbol is weird. Of two observations in, the upper limit for a feature of time is T. When we need storage OST, Jesus fuck, bunch of math, where we let S be the space of all block trees, which grows quickly infeasible. Okay. So they're talking about their like different Merkle chains where you're, well, not Merkles, but where you're estimating the strategy of the miner based on their previous performance and basically like how they stack transactions in the block. And when you'll know that from their submissions, their previous submissions, you'll be able to discern their basic mining strategy. You know, how they order their transactions, how they prioritize their transactions. And from that, you'll be able to potentially graph out their estimated earnings or how many times they'll actually get the block reward in that. And that will allow you to educate your particular mining strategy. How might you be able to outgame them there? Anyway, continuing on. Number 3, deep reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning, RL, is a class of machine learning algorithms that learn strategies, enabling an agent to maximize its cumulative rewards in an environment. Much RL research is focused on solving MDPs where P or R are known or too large to be practical. However, the field encompasses more general settings such as Markov games. Deep reinforcement learning, DRL, is a class of RL that uses neural networks to learn policies even without needing to explicitly specify the underlying system dynamics. In this work, we explore the potential of deep reinforcement learning to automate the analysis of attacks on blockchain incentive mechanisms, particularly in settings where algorithms like policy iteration are impractical or impossible to use. Large or infinite state spaces, Markov games, and MDPs with unspecified P or R. And here I think is where one of those old-time principles of physics, I think it is, where the I think Robert Anton Wilson, he attributed it to somebody else, but he stylized it as the quantum inseparability principle. And this is where the experiment itself or the observed itself changes by the very nature of it being observed. Meaning, if the miners know that you're applying Squirrel as an analysis framework, they might modify their behavior to give false signals to your analysis, and thus blowing up your ability to predict their stacking of the transactions, and thus making it a big waste of money. Continuing on. Meaning it'll probably only work on people that don't know that they're being monitored. DRL has been particularly successful in problems where the state space is intractably large. Roughly, this is because DRL uses neural networks to replace tables. For instance, instead of storing a lookup table to decide what action to take, one can instead have a function neural network, F addressed to SA, whose size does not scale with S. Widely publicized examples like chess and Go exhibit large state spaces, as do blockchain incentive mechanisms. Most blockchain incentive mechanisms have an additional RL-friendly feature that rewards are processed continuously. That is, in chess or Go, rewards are calculated in an all-or-nothing manner at the end of the game. In blockchains, players reap rewards incrementally, enabling reward estimation before the game is complete. The faster feedback makes it easier to train automated systems to learn effective strategies. As such, DRL is a natural tool for this problem. A. Design considerations in deep RL. Number 1. State space representation. Most blockchains are structured as a directed acyclical graph, DAG. So a naive state space representation might be to use the entire DAG as the current state. This approach has a few problems. First, its dimensionality grows over time. Second, it includes irrelevant information, ergo, old state chains that cannot be displaced with high probability. We therefore require a representation of the state space that is general enough to apply to different blockchains, while being constrained enough to limit the problem dimension. An important part of Squirrel is our derivation of a general framework for extracting a compact state space representation features that is general enough to learn meaningful attacks for different protocols, meaning enough to limit their options so that they're not barking up too many wrong trees. Number 2, learning algorithm. Two common classes of learning algorithms are value-based methods and policy gradient methods. Value-based methods typically aim to build a value function that associates some value with each state. A common example is Q-learning. Policy gradient methods instead try to optimize rewards by performing gradient descent on a parametric policy, which in our case will be represented by a neural network. Common examples include the reinforce algorithm and actor-critic methods. We make use of both classes of algorithms in this work, as different DRL algorithms perform well in different settings. The most basic algorithm is deep Q networks, DQNs, which is based on the classical idea of Q-learning. However, more sophisticated algorithms, including policy gradient methods, have surpassed DQNs in many problem areas, sometimes at the expense of higher computational cost. Number 3, reward function. Designing a good reward function can significantly impact the success of the overall system. Often, this requires a combination of domain knowledge and some timing of hyperparameters. Hyperparameters. What's a hyperparameter? Getting up here, training heuristics and hyperparameters. Some attack models and or protocols can be difficult to learn due to complexity. Leveraging blockchain domain knowledge to design training heuristics can help DRL agents learn, which we show in section 6A. 4. Squirrel system description. Figure 1 shows the use of RL-based learning framework that is the cornerstone of Squirrel. It involves a 3-stage pipeline for discovering and analyzing adversarial strategies targeting an incentive mechanism M. First, the protocol designer builds an environment that simulates execution of the protocol realizing M. We anticipate that the bulk of the effort involved in the Squirrel framework will go into this part of the system, as the environment fully encapsulates a model of M. The protocol designer instantiates in the environment a set of features, state space representation over which learning will occur, as well as a space of actions that agents may take. What features to use may be iteratively tuned to improve performance of the RL algorithm at a later stage. In parallel, the protocol designer chooses an adversarial model to explore. We have outlined a principled set of choices in our discussion of Table 1 in Section 2. Finally, the protocol designer selects an RL algorithm appropriate for the environment and adversarial model. They must associate with the RL algorithm a reward function and hyperparameter, both of which may be iteratively tuned as exploration proceeds. In this section, we describe respectively the environment's adversarial models and RL algorithms we employ in Squirrel for the experiments in this paper. We focus on incentive mechanisms related to block rewards, since these have dominated the literature on blockchain incentive mechanisms vulnerabilities. But similar ideas can be applied to transaction rewards. For example, the environment construction depends on the precise incentive mechanism and underlying consensus algorithm, But there's a strong commonality among our environment designs. In particular, we describe 4 aspects of the environment: the block generation model, the reward function, the action space, the feature extraction. Of these, the most challenging design problem is the feature extraction. So we provide a general purpose algorithm for choosing a feature extractor given an action space and a model of the environment randomness. A. Block generation. As in prior work, we assume a randomized model for block generation. Hence, we view block generation as a discrete time process, where a new block is generated at each time slot. I is greater than or equal to 0. We generalize this assumption in section 6b in a proof of work. A party that controls fraction A of the network's mining power mines the ith block with a probability of A independent across all time slots. This model is easily extended to proof of stake, where parameters depend on the block generation mechanism. In accordance with prior work, we assume that the network communicates blocks instantaneously to other nodes. We relax this assumption in section 7a. In the event that an agent's block is received simultaneously with an honest party's block, and both are considered equally viable by the consensus mechanism M, we assume that the honest nodes all followed the adversarial block with probability Y, and all followed the honest node with a probability of 1 minus Y. We call Y the follower fraction. B. Rewards. In most chain-based blockchains, ergo Bitcoin, the miner of a block that appears in the final ledger receives a block reward. Like prior work, we consider one or more attackers that aim to maximize their block rewards given a constrained amount of computational resources. We ignore transaction fees for simplicity. We define... Yeah, that really fucking simplifies things. It changes the incentive to mine in a specific manner, if you're not calculating fees. Anyway, continuing on. We define b to the square root of a times t and s, and b to the square root of o t as the rewards of the attacker of interest and all other miners, respectively, at time t under attack strategy S. When there are multiple attackers of interest, we differentiate them with superscripts. We compute a miner's reward by aggregating the block reward it accumulates, avoiding analysis of uncontrolled externalities such as coin price or electricity cost. Oh, dude, you're just really limiting down your potentialities that are motivating your incentives. Come on now. In practice, miners appear to optimize their absolute reward rate, defined as a bunch of math. However, prior work has mostly focused on relative rewards, defined as the attacker's block rewards as a fraction of the whole network's rewards. In Appendix A, we showed that over even moderate time periods in the Bitcoin protocol, the two objectives are interchangeable. We will focus on relative rewards for many of our results, since this enables direct comparison with proof of work. Yeah, it also limits your analytical model also limits the realm of incentives such that you can produce a result. It's not necessarily going to be correct because you're not taking into account all the factors, but it'll be a result. and maybe even a probable result. And it might actually work as long as people aren't minding the fact that you have established this framework and you're analyzing their mining behavior by it. If the framework is openly available, people will study your methodology and say, you know what, I can spoof these signals by mining this way. And all of a sudden, all this analysis and shit, and all the computer it's all fucking worthless, because now they know that you're watching, and they know how to spoof. Continuing on, this to me is an attempt, yet another attempt, to find a way to make miners be honest. And the fact of the matter is the only way is to make it a greater incentive to mine appropriately and maximize your profits by mining appropriately. They should find that playing by the rules of the game is most profitable. And the fact that they are doing any kind of adversarial attacks demonstrates the fact that it is not. That according to its current operation, both the Bitcoin network and the Ethereum network, it is more profitable to try and cheat. And that is going to change, though. And I will tell you how. And it's not going to be via the elimination of altcoins. If anything, altcoins are going to provide enough incentive for Bitcoin miners to get it fucking right. Because enough of the traffic is going to go over to blockchains that can actually reward the miners appropriately, that Bitcoin is going to be looking at itself, or the Bitcoin miners are going to be looking at themselves saying, you know what, we should be mining something else that's more profitable than this. Bitcoin will lose its hashing power, adversarial attackers will increase because the value won't drop. It'll stay up there just, due to market faith and speculation until it gets hammered down enough that it's a low enough network, and then it'll be relooking for its equilibrium. And when it finds it, though, it will take off again. This is a 140-year game, kids. This is not going to end overnight. And all of your analysis and jerking off, you're dedicating power to this shit that you could be mining with. You should find it more profitable to play by the rules. And you know what? If the rules aren't what they should be, or what you think they should be, start flagging support for your own BIPs. Stop looking to Core and other people that have perverse incentives to design their software to where it benefits them. Quit looking to them for your fucking code base. Start about trying to make your own. It's obvious that currently 1 megabyte is not enough fucking transactions to motivate the miners to operate appropriately. Instead, they're dedicating all kinds of hashing power to all these models of fucking orphan blocks that they're not ever going to add. They're not ever going to be able to add profitably. And so it's just a bunch of wasted computer power that could have been dedicated to securing the network. And I mean, I don't know how to make it more clear. I'm going to keep saying what I'm saying, and eventually you motherfuckers are going to catch up to me. You're going to figure out that Satoshi Nakamoto had it right all along, and that trying to shift the profitability off to abstraction layers, it's just going to fuck the underlying protocol. That eventually the miners are going to be nothing but adversarial actors. And they're going to be looking to value snipe directly on the chain. And all of your efforts to do Lightning transactions are going to fail, because eventually they're going to get bought by people like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. And they're going to be selfishly mining on their behalf, if they aren't already. I would assume that Fidelity is probably doing some selfish mining out there right now. Because they're in to make money. just like everybody else. And again, if there is more money to be made in cheating and acting as an adversarial actor, that's what they're going to fucking do. It's all about incentives, kids. Game of incentives. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, we're down to about 4 minutes and change here. Let's see here. What's a good song? What would be a good song to finish out this particular one? Oh, that one's too long. Gonna have to narrow it down to something about 3 minutes. Here we go. Little Red Fang for us to close it out. Blood Like Cream, Last Dance, here on Quiet Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent weekend. Good night.